I find it a little weird that this is empty, so if you guys in the first row would mind getting up and sitting there. Yeah, I mean, it's just weird. I feel like...
Jay? Jay? You can bring some more people in. We've got some front row seats open.
All right. Now, let's get this started. I'm not really sure what that means, but basically, thanks everybody. Thanks for coming. I hope you all know why you're here. I'm not, I'm not opening for anybody. This is it. It's as good as it gets.
Seats over here.
So I think what I'll do is just spew for a few minutes and then take your questions, because I'm sure you can ask much more interesting things than I can say. Who has no idea who I am? All right. So you in the striped shirt, let me just talk to you for a few minutes. The rest of you, you can catch up on your texting. My name is Max Brooks. I've written a couple books about zombies. One is called Zombie Survival Guide. There you go. That's what it looks like. And another one called World War Z. And I have a graphic novel coming out. See, in the back of the Zombie Survival Guide, I've got these what's called recorded attacks. And so I want to do a graphic novel of those. And I was stalked and approached by Avatar Comics. And through them in Random House, we put together, we're still here. It's just you. You're looking away. There you go. Well, we have this graphic novel coming out, which you can pre-order it on Amazon now, which is what I like to do. That way it just sort of shows up. And so we found this great artist. His name is Ibrahim Roberson, and it's just I can brag about it because it's not me, so I don't sound arrogant. His art is great. So that's pretty much that's who I am and sort of what I do. I started out. Those of you who don't, it's all right. Now I'm going to talk to you. Basically, I started writing Zombie Survival Guide back in the late 1990s. Many of you might not remember this term. This was a time. It seems like it happened on another planet. We were at peace. The economy was booming. The biggest political scandal was a BJ. Yeah, those were good days. However, there was this threat looming on the horizon called Y2K, which was crazy because even though, America was experiencing the largest peacetime boom in its history. Things were so great, and yet people were really starting to freak out. There was this thing like, well, oh my God, the clocks are all going to go to zero, and the nuclear missiles are going to launch, and the ATMs are going to turn into transformers. There really was this panic, and I'm not talking about like crazy survivalists who wanted it to happen. Grown-ups with jobs. People I knew were like, yeah, I just put some money aside in cash, and I bought some land in Northern California, and we pitched a tent. And those of you remember in World War Z that there was one rich guy turned his house sort of into a fort? Yeah, based on someone I really know. He was ready for Y2K. He got a generator, and he was ready. He's like, we're just going to go out. We're just going to go out to the island, and when it happens, we're just... I'm not saying something's going to happen, but we're ready. Which was great, because a few years later there was a blackout, and he was the only guy with power. So. But there was this paranoia, there was this terror, and these survival guides kept coming out. And I think survivalism is something very uniquely American. You know, we're very individualist. We really feel like culturally, if we have the right tools and the right skills, we can survive anything, and it might actually be cool. So all these survival guides were hitting the shelves, and they were getting crazier and crazier. I mean, literally one, it was like how to survive an all-out race war. I was like, okay, you know what, enough of the bullshit. There's not going to be a race war. There's not going to be the banks melting. There's not going to be nuclear missiles. Damien's not going to rise. It's just not going to happen. But zombies. I figured, you know what, I was a struggling screenwriter living in California's Siberia, which is what I call the Valley. And I was writing script after script that nobody wanted, and I didn't even like writing. And I said, you know what, I gotta write something just for me. And I sat down and I wrote Zombie Survival Guide in my spare time, every night, just a couple hours a night, and just did what most writers do with what they love. I stuck it in a drawer. And it sat there for years while I actually did develop a career. And then I met a book agent. He said, oh, yeah, do you have any books? And yeah, I got this thing about zombies. And he's like, oh, it's interesting. I think I can get that published. And I was like, you do that. And he did. And so this book hit the shelves, and I thought, well, I've got to try it. I got to try and market this thing somehow because nobody's going to be into this. So I came up with this really crazy, stupid idea. What if I started doing self-defense lectures? Just deadpan, like if zombies were real and you walked in the room and you heard me speaking, you'd be like, oh, now I'm ready. So I did my first one, and I'm just flop sweating. I'm like Albert Brooks in broadcast news. It's just, it was horrible, and I thought, oh my God, if I'm totally bombing, it's not like I could steal someone else's anti-zombie material. I'm all out here alone. So we got to the question and answer period. It was a room about this full, and I thought the questions were all going to be like, you know, what was it like on SNL? Is Jimmy that cute? Is Tina that nice? Is Tracy Morgan that crazy? Whatever. And the questions were like, if I'm bitten on the arm, how long do I have to wait before I cut my arm off? And I realized, well, I have to answer them in their language because I wrote the book. This is my responsibility. So I'm like, well, it all depends. How big is the bite? And are you bitten on a vein or an artery? Because if you're bitten on a vein, then the blood's going right to the heart. And so then you're going to die a lot quicker than if it's an artery and it's going away from the heart. You're like, oh, yeah. And so before I knew it, I had more of these bookings, and I just kept doing it and answering people's real questions. Things like, well, what if I like put up razor wire and they come at me and they cut their head off? And I go, that's a great idea. What height would it be? Oh, yeah. But the pressure was on me to keep it real, and that's exactly why I wrote Zombie Survival Guide. You know, I didn't write it to be published, and therefore I could be as real as I wanted. You know, like, all right, when you go to movies, and there's always some like nerd bag in your group, and he just won't let you enjoy the damn movie. He's always like, well, that would never happen, because see, the Borg have micro implants and the laws of physics, and you're like, oh my God! Just shut up! Well, that nerd bag is me. So I wanted to make Zombie Survival Guide as real as possible. People say, well, did you watch a lot of zombie movies? No, I watched one, Dawn of the Dead, scared the crap out of me, and then that was it. The research was real research, and I had to make sure everything came from the real world, to the point that I get in arguments constantly, mainly with gun nuts. Because, I mean, America, you know, you don't want to insult their gun preferences. But my arguments have to be based on fact, and I have to say, look, I'm sorry. The M16 will jam every several hundred rounds. It just will. The AK-47, yes, it will.
It's just my neck.
Oh, all right. The AK-47 will jam every few thousand rounds. Those statistics come from the United States Army, okay? Maybe the M16 is more accurate at longer range, but if a zombie's that far away, it's not a threat. So I have to make sure that I do my homework. And people ask me, you know, why zombies? You know, why? Duh. Well, I mean, the first answer is they're scary. Well, why are they scary? Specifically to me. They're scary to me because they break all the rules of horror. You know, most creatures you have to go find. You know, because let's face it, we're Homo sapiens. We dominated the planet. You know, saber-toothed tigers and mammoths and giant sloths, killed them all. Nobody can stand against us. We're so good at killing, we start killing each other, and we're even good at that. So, in order to find a monster, we have to go somewhere in a swamp, in a desert, under a pyramid. I just saw the movie The Ruins. Yeah, don't go to the ruins. See, that's my attitude. If you go somewhere and you find it, well, then that's your ass. And I have no sympathy. You know, I mean, they talk about the tragedy of the crocodile hunter, and yeah, I mean, it's a tragedy. The guy had a family, that's always a tragedy. However, let us not forget that he was a crocodile hunter. You know, nobody drafted him into this. You know, at some point he sat down with his guidance counselor and said, you know, I'd like to spend the rest of my life poking dangerous animals with a stick. So, okay, now, if let's say he hadn't been a crocodile hunter, let's say he'd been Steve Irwin, Australian accountant, and you know, he was just sitting home at TV, you know, just watching like Neighbors or something, and there was a knock at the door, you know. Hello, I'll get it. And he went and opened the door and there was a stingray. And he jumped on him and stabbed him in the heart. Well, that would be a tragedy. And that's what scares me about zombies. They come to you. They don't care if you're naughty or nice. They don't care who you're voting for. They don't care if you're a couple of teenagers up in a cabin going, ooh, I heard something. You go investigate, we'll have sex. They don't care. You can be there. You can just be at home minding your business. You know, just going over here, clipping coupons, and before you know it, the window's going to crash, and here they come. That's what scares me about zombies. They come into the heart of our world. And it's like a walking plague. It's the idea that they cannot be bargained or negotiated. There's no middle ground. You know, anybody else, any other creature you can negotiate with. I mean, Freddy, you know, come to Freddy. You know, or Jason, you know, just dress up like his mother. Jason, no! Go kill him! And then you're not. There's ways around it. You know, Jaws, don't go in the frickin' water. But the idea that there are these creatures that will come directly into the heart of our society and turn us into them, and there is no middle ground, kill or be killed, no negotiation, no surrender, which must be really hard on the French. And that is why they absolutely terrify me. So when I was done with Zombie Survival Guide, and I said, you know, I think I still have another zombie book in me, but what else do I want to write about? And you know, I didn't want to write about just a typical zombie novel of like a guy or a group, and they got to get from point A to point B, and that's called micro horror, and that's great, and I have no problem with that. But there's plenty of zombie novels out there, especially now. Everybody and their mother's writing a zombie novel, and some of them I think must be good. But I wanted to write something that I wanted to read that wasn't out there. So I thought, well, what if there was a bigger zombie play? Because like when I watch the old Dawn of the Dead, I'm the most interested when they're watching TV and they're sort of seeing what's going out there. I want to know what's happening out there. You know, I want to know what's happening in Russia and China and Africa. How do different cultures deal with it, and what would happen to the environment, and what would be the global consequences of a zombie plague? And I said, well, I mean, the best way to do it, I think, is to write it like a series of interviews. My favorite book was called The Good War by Studs Terkel, an interview with World War II survivors. So I said, you know, this is what I'm going to do. And, you know, I just sat down, spent 2 years doing doing a lot of homework. I'm very, very lucky that I know people who have real jobs, so I could just call them and ask them. I could say, you know, hey, medical term, does this work? Yeah. I know somebody who works for Uncle Sam, and I was like, look, you don't need to reveal anything, but tell me, if a nuclear bomb went off here, and is this, could you be blinded without it? Right back, yes. And so that was World War Z. And now, apparently, it's been optioned for a movie. The good news is I'll tell you everything I know. The bad news is it ain't much. The good news is the screenwriter is J. Michael Straczynski, Babylon 5. Wow. Which is very unlike the way studios typically do these movies. You know, usually they take someone and they go, well, here's the writer, he wrote Dukes of Hazzard, and he still has 2 more movies left on his contract. Let's give him World War Z. The fact that he actually chose a guy who knows what he's doing and is a genius. And I can tell you, I can't tell you what's in his script. I read a draft, and it was freaking amazing. And I'm not supposed to say that as the book writer. I'm supposed to be like, the killing of a baby. No, he's really good. Now, what happens with that draft, I don't know. I don't know. I know that they're looking for directors, and I do know, actually, day before yesterday, Paramount just renewed the option on World War Z. Sweet. Yes. Which means that they have an emotional commitment to making this. But that's all I know. I don't want to be part of this. You know, it's a highly collaborative process. And through that process, my initial image will be diluted and be turned into a movie and adapted. And that's fine. And I'm totally cool with that. But I don't have to be part of it. And I don't want to take responsibility in case it sucks. So if it does get made and you don't like it, so that's sort of where we are right now. I think I probably open up the floor to questions at this point. Yes, sir.
Got a question. In World War Z, near the end, you wrote about the canine corps. That was a particularly touching interview to me in the way you use the dogs to sniff out the zombies and do some of the recruiting and such. What kind of research did you do for that?
The question was about war dogs and using them in combat. I've actually had to study war dogs because a friend of mine did a whole documentary on them in Vietnam. So I got a lot of great background information on how they've sort of been used in combat, and it's called, I think it is called War Dogs. It's this heartbreaking documentary where these dogs in Vietnam, when we pulled out, we left them there. We left them there because they were Army property. You know, like it was called Vietnamization. So we're leaving, you know, the Vietnamese to South, we're leaving them our tanks, our planes, and our dogs.
Yeah.
And who knows whatever happened to them. I mean, the South Vietnamese were not trained to be with these dogs, and these dogs had a personal relationship with their partner. So I thought, yes, in combat we probably would still use them, and they'd be treated like real soldiers, and the emotional attachment would be tremendous. So that's where I got the idea for the dogs. Yes, way back. Yay.
How do you think that zombie genre is really kind of overdone and stuff? And how do you think it contributed originality to the film?
The question is, how do I feel about, do I feel the zombie genre has been overdone, and do I feel like I've contributed to it being overdone? Have I added any originality to it? Well, the first question is, yeah, I do feel it has. I feel like everybody's jumping on the zombie bandwagon, and it's upsetting because I do feel like what we are doing is we're hastening the public's distaste for zombies. We're oversaturating, and eventually we're going to move on. And that's not going to affect my career. You know, I've had my moment in the sun. I've written my books. I've done what I had to do. But what bothers me is for up-and-coming writers. You know, a lot of people are writing zombie books or comics or making movies just because that's what people are doing, and it's popular. They think they can make money about it. And the problem is, if you oversaturate the market and then people turn away from it, there are going to be some up-and-coming artists, you know, writers or comic book artists or filmmakers who really, really want to make zombie movies. You know, that's what they want to do. And yet, if the market is saturated and people aren't doing it anymore, they're not going to get their shot. And we will be denying these people a chance to maybe really contribute something unique and brilliant and original to the genre. And that's what worries me, is that this zombie glut is going to kill people's future chances. Thank you. As far as if I contributed anything original, I mean, I don't know, it's up for you guys to decide. Yes.
Well, I've read, as you said, there's many, many zombie properties out there, and I certainly haven't read the majority of them, but I've read a few, and honestly, World War Z was the greatest zombie book I've ever read, and I really hated to come to the end of the book. Now, I totally understand how, even if there wasn't a glut of this material hitting the market, that an author would not want to be pigeonholed having to write the same kind of stuff, just like an actor wouldn't want to have to do the same kind of role. That being said, I really hate the fact that the greatest zombie book I ever read, I'm probably never going to get any more of this.
Well, all right, will I write another zombie book? That's a very good question. The truth is, I don't know. It's not because I'm afraid of being pigeonholed. Because listen, I love zombies. I mean, I don't love them, I hate them. But I'm into them. And if I'm going to, I mean, look, you're going to be pigeonholed for something. And if I'm going to be pigeonholed, better it be for something that I love and I'm passionate about. You know, thank God I'm one of those few people that actually hit in something I care about. You know, there's plenty of people out there, you know, poor Leonard Nimoy. You know, that guy who could have been, whoa. And everyone's like, live long and live. So I don't mind being the zombie guy. But if I do write another zombie book, it's going to have to be because I really, really, really want to do it.
Story.
Yeah, I want to tell a story because something my father taught me, the only way to not fail is to be passionate about what you do. Because you cannot write for your audience because you don't know what they're going to think. And if you write something for them and they don't like it and you don't like it, that's failure. If you like it and they don't like it, hey, you roll the dice. But you liked it. Like World War Z, I had no idea. There's never been a zombie book like that. I had no idea if anybody was going to like it. But you know what? I really had a blast writing it. And I'm proud of it. And if nobody had liked it, I still would have been proud of it. And that is the only way that I can operate. If I have another zombie book in me, it's going to have to be something so passionate that's going to have to be criticism-proof. In that when it gets out there and people hate it, I'll say, fine, yeah, I still like it. Because to this day, the biggest criticism I get of World War Z, it's constant, it's unceasing, is why didn't you just write like characters and they went on a story? And like, why'd you break it up into different interviews with people and it went all around the world? And I'm like,
That was the point.
that was the point. And I'm proud of it, and I'll never change that for anything. So that's sort of the way, because I mean, what I don't want to do, I don't want to just write zombie novels because there's money in it or because I'm afraid that I'll lose popularity, because they'll just get worse and worse and worse and worse. And I don't want to dog on any other authors, but there's plenty of authors that I'm huge fans of, and then I'll see their later works and I'll be like, wow, you just felt like you had to write another book. You know, like, why didn't you just take a couple years off? You know, like, you're not passionate about this anymore. You're phoning it in. I don't even know if you wrote it. Maybe you ghost wrote it. So I don't want to do that. But, you know, hey, we'll see. My kid's only 3 years old, and college is a long ways away. Yes?
You wrote the survival guide for yourself, really. You said you put it up with it. What was the difference in the work regimen writing World War Z, where you knew you had an audience, you knew that you had already done something? Did you still write it when you went home for a couple hours every night, or was it a work project?
Well, when I wrote the Zombie Survival Guide, I was a very different man. I was single. I mean, I had a girlfriend, but I was single. I was unemployed. I was living in the valley, and all I had was free time. When I wrote World War Z, I was married to my girlfriend. We had a brand new baby. He was just born. My mom was dying, so literally, I went on this regimen where my wife had an emergency C-section, so she had to sleep every night. Like, honey, you sleep. I'll watch the baby. And the baby would sleep, and I'd literally have him in his vibrating chair right next to me as I worked all night. So that would be our routine. So that's how I wrote World War Z. The baby would sleep, I'd watch him, you know, he'd move. That's literally what it would look like. And then in the morning, my wife would wake up, the child, I would go to sleep. And that's sort of how it all came out. So things were very, very different when I wrote World War Z. Yes. Yeah, you.
So if you had a chance to read the script for Paramount or some sort of draft, is it still to be documentary style? You mentioned how successful it was doing your self-defense talks and doing it realistic.
Oh, and will I? Oh, you want me to spill on the script?
Yeah.
No. Because I may be an artist with some principles, but the key word being some. No, they don't let me talk about the script. I can't do that, especially because it's not even mine. I'm sure J. Michael Straczynski's around here somewhere. Go find him. Yes, in the front.
Okay, I'm gonna apologize in advance. I'm gonna be one of the guys that gives you one of those random hypotheticals.
Random hypothetical question.
Okay. You get a call from downstairs in the exhibit hall. A zombie outbreak has just occurred. What is your strategy?
Okay, I'm going to call a zombie outbreak has started. I say, all of you, go through those doors. And I go out that one.
Where did you get the name of the virus from?
Oh, some of them?
Yeah.
My 7th grade Latin dictionary? No, I mean, I wanted a reasonable sounding viral name. I mean, I actually had to study viruses. Do you know the name virus? Actually, the original name for viruses was contagious living fluid. I educate myself when I do this kind of stuff. I'm like, as they discovered, they're like, well, it's not bacteria, it's even smaller. What is this? So that's sort of where I needed a credible name. Yes.
So after a particularly bad United Mud, I had my worst zombie nightmare. I thought of my whole plans for 5 colleges, so I got a little teary like after that part of your book. Were you already thinking of zombies back in Ed Spencer?
Oh, this gentleman was asking, was I thinking of zombies when I went back when I was at Pitzer College, where I went to college? No, I was actually thinking of hippies. No, I got the idea for the Battle of the 5 Colleges because I had a girlfriend over at Scripps, the women's college, and I remember when I would go there, I would be like, wow, there's a wall around this campus. And you know, my nerd senses were tingling. And I was like, I don't know when I'll ever use this, but this is quite interesting. So that's where I got the idea. Yes, way back.
This is a comment about your research from the World War Zeus project. They wanted to thank you for describing the Zeus in the book so accurately, much more accurately than most journalists. And that's from Daryl, who's the lead operator on the program, and his team.
Thank you very much. That is, Zeus Project is the laser weaponry system that I talked about in World War Z. The smaller solid-state lasers that you can mount on a Hummer. And that may be one of the best compliments I ever got. Thank you very much. Yes, whose ever cell phone is ringing, stand up. All right, you want to take that? We can wait. Okay. All right, thank you. Next question. Against the wall.
Hey, how did you come up with the Rediker plan and the psychology of the man that was created?
Oh, the Rediker plan. Well, that came out of just studying South African history. Before I'm a zombie nerd, before I'm a sci-fi horror nerd, I'm a history nerd. And history has always been so fascinating for me, mainly because I'm really dyslexic, so when I was in school, I was just not doing well at all, and I probably would have not dropped out, but I certainly wouldn't have gone to college. I met a history teacher in 10th grade who just turned everything around for me, because he made history, instead of about names, dates, and places, he made it about motives. Why do people do these things? Why did 80 million people follow Hitler, and why do Americans not follow the crazo wannabe Hitler sitting on the street corners? You know, what is it about national psychologies that make people do the things that they do? Why did the Italians string up Mussolini and the Germans fought for Hitler till the very last bullet? So, studying South Africa, it was fascinating because during apartheid, you literally had this white enclave that was teetering on the edge of all-out bloodbath. Because remember, in African, if those of you who don't know African history, there was a lot of uprisings in the 60s and 70s where the white colonialists that lived in places like Kenya and Rhodesia were massacred by the local Africans. And so the white South Africans were like, oh my God, those guys were massacred, and they didn't even, it wasn't even their fault. We are the most oppressive Nazi-like white people in the world. We have it coming. So they literally were ready. I mean, children were taught to shoot at a very early age. Everyone, like, you know, living in Southern California, we have earthquake plans. Well, if there's an earthquake, you go here. They were like, well, okay, if there's a big uprising, we'll all meet at the mall. I mean, literally, this is what families would talk about. So I thought, all right, if anyone was going to have a really sick, twisted, Nazi-like plan of how are we going to survive, it would have been the South Africans. And so that's where I invented the character of Paul Rediker. As far as his psychology, you know, it came from some of the Afrikaners I met when I was in South Africa. And a lot of them, terrible, terrible guilt about what they did, but also unable to face their guilt about what they did, and that they were part of it. You know, one guy was like, look, we just were taught not to think. But we do think, and now we have to live with the consequences of our actions. So I sort of took all that national guilt and put it into this one guy. So that was Paul Rediker, and that was the Rediker plan. Yes?
I was wondering, well, there's a whole group of people who have legitimate psychological phobias of dogs, and I was wondering if you have any interesting stories or letters from people who thanked you for the zombie survival guide, so they could potentially overcome it with their phobia.
The question was about, does anybody have people who have real zombie phobias? Have I helped them in stories? Well, I'll tell you one story. I was in Utah. I was going to do a gig in Salt Lake City, and we're doing radio press, and we're getting calls, you know, and most of it, you know, let me just backtrack and say that most people that come to my lectures, 10% are people who are, they're intellectuals, and they say, oh, Max Brooks, witty social satire. And then there's about 80% who are just like me. They're zombie nerds. They're into it. They're like, oh man, where would I go? What would I do? That'd be really cool. That would never happen. And then there's another 10%. They're ready. And let me tell you, when I do those lectures in red states, that percentage of ready. So I'm in Utah, and I'm doing radio press, and I get this phone call. This caller comes in, she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm scared of zombies now that I've read your book, and I can't afford it. I live in a trailer with 4 kids, and I don't have a husband, and I don't know what to do. I said, ma'am, if you live in a trailer with 4 children, and you're a single mom, and by the way, she's also unemployed, and you don't have a job, you have bigger problems than zombies. I said, why don't you focus on the other problems first, and then we'll talk about the zombies. All right. So I guess I did help her. I got her to focus on other things. Yes?
One of the things that I thought was so brilliantly done in your World War Z book was for the idea of Quizlings. What motivated you to include that factor of Quizlings in your book?
Oh, what motivated me to write about Quizlings? Well, I think there is a large section of the human psyche that cannot deal with fight or flight. I mean, that's just, you know, a greater percentage of them talk like this over there. But there is, you know, most of us, we all like to feel like, you know, we're Bruce Willis, and we'll be tortured, you know, and they'll be attaching electrodes to our testicles and say, I want to hear you scream, and we'll just go, why don't you play some rap music? No, that's not how most of us are. Most of us are like, I'll tell you anything you want to know. What do you want to know? Okay, yeah, sure, no problem. What would most people be like if confronted with a situation where there was no middle road? And so, I mean, that's why even in a movie as simplistic as Independence Day, you had to have that scene where Bill Pullman's talking to the alien, and is like, what do you want us to do? And the alien goes, die. Because literally there's going to be a lot of us in the audience that was like, so they can rape our resources, fine. But oh, if he wants to die, oh, well then, yeah. So when faced with fight or flight, there will be probably a very small percentage of those who can't handle it. But there will be a percentage of those that no matter what are just like, I just want to be on your side. And that's where I got the idea for the business. Anyone else? Yes, in the hat.
Yes, both your books focus on virus zombies.
Yes.
How do you feel about the magical zombies that aren't transmitted through light?
How do I feel about the magical zombies? Okay, the voodoo zombies, they don't scare me because the voodoo zombies are controlled by whoever voodoo sizes them. And they're not flesh eaters, they're cheap labor. Literally, that's where the zombie mythos was invented. I mean, it was literally like somebody does something bad to you, and then you go to the witch doctor, and he turns that person into a zombie, and then that person does your lawn. That's literally where it comes from. So they don't scare me at all. No, I mean, hey, a couple of those would be great. Yes.
I've been doing a lot of thinking.
That's good.
That was actually my question. So after reading World War Z, so if zombies attack and you try and go to the ocean, you're screwed because the zombies come out of the ocean and they eat you. If you try and go north, you don't have enough resources and everybody kills each other and the zombies eat you and you're screwed. You stay at home, they eat you in the city and you die. What do you do?
He is not ready.
In my book, I say that a zombie plague is not something you can cram for. You have to be ready, and you have to have a plan, and you have to have resources. If you are going to go north, you can't just drive there on Z-Day. You have to have already scouted it. You have to have all your gear ready. You should probably know some locals. So when you show up there, you're like, hey, Inuktitut, hey, all right, and hang out, and you know what to do. If you go to the ocean, don't just run into the ocean. You have to have your boat ready, and it has to be off the shore. And then you go, and you're like, oh, Captain, all right, and then you're going. Planning. Ready. You're not just like, oh, the zombies have risen. Well, then, yeah, then you are screwed. Yes, in the hat.
For people that want to write zombie novels or at least incorporate zombies in books, do you have any suggestions of things to avoid?
If you want to write any suggested things to avoid, yes, I'll tell you exactly what to avoid when writing a zombie book. Avoid writing it because it's cool, or that you think you'll make money, or that other people are doing it. That's what you avoid. If you really, really want to write a zombie book, just because you're into zombies, then do it. Just do it. And don't worry about what people will think. Some of the zombie novels that I like to support are novels that came out before it was popular. Like this guy, Len Barnhart, wrote Reign of the Dead. And whatever you may think of it, he did it when nobody was doing it. And I'll always have respect for people like that. So yeah, if you really want to write a zombie story, just write it. And who cares what anybody else thinks? You're never going to control that. Yes?
Who do you base the president and vice president of the United States on?
Who is the president and the vice president?
Who do you base it on?
Who did I base it on? What do you think? Throw it out.
For the president?
Yeah, what do you think?
I thought it was Colonel Powell.
Yeah, it was Powell and it was Dean. I had the president as Colin Powell. I mean, he's the man. He would have, he was. I've always been a fan of Powell. When I was in college, I was in ROTC during the Gulf War, which sounds cooler than it actually is. It basically meant I shaved my head, ran every morning, and threw up. But I remember when Powell was speaking, and he got a lot of criticism for not going all the way. And Powell said, look, we cannot, we've done what we set out to do. We liberated Kuwait, we've driven his army back, and our job is not to invade and occupy Iran. It would tie us down for the next 10 years.
Or Iraq.
Did I say Iran or Iraq? Iraq, oh, one of them. So yeah, and because Dean reminds me of Harry Truman. He's this very sort of take no prisoners SOB, and I think the two of them would have been a great team. I'm not saying I would vote for them, but I think in a zombie outbreak, maybe I would. Yes?
Are you aware of the zombie walk that's occurring tomorrow, and what's your take on groups of people coming together dressed as zombies?
Well, what's my take on groups of people dressed as zombies?
Yeah.
Did they buy my book? Power to them. Yes, miss. Yes.
I just had comments on it. You said you really wanted to address reality with your books.
Yes.
World War Z, I'm a librarian, and everyone who talks about this book, I found myself reading it going, oh my God, these poor people. And then, oh wait, it's fiction. And then with the Zombie Survival Guide, a friend of mine was stationed in Iraq, and one of the guys in his company had Zombie Survival Guide, and they were fighting each other over who got to read it next. And he said it's just awesome. It's so realistic. It's just.
You know, as a history major, I tried to make sure that everything in World War Z was based on historical fact. So everything in World War Z has actually already happened, just not with zombies. There's nothing in there that I just made up off the top of my head. I mean, everything in there has taken place at some point in human history. You know, the scene in the church where the parents have to kill the kids, really happened on Okinawa. When during World War II, the Japanese government told the Okinawans, you know, the Americans are coming basically to kill your children, so you better take care of them first. And they did. And I remember reading survivor accounts, oh my God, this is horrific. Everything. You know, going north to Canada, that seems to be like the big hit of the book. Well, that's based on any kind of war. I mean, whenever there's a war, you have casualties, especially now where you bomb cities and civilians, there's casualties of soldiers who die, but then there's a lot of people who just die of starvation, of winter. I mean, they say had World War II gone on another year, the winter that would have taken Japan, the famine that would have taken Japan, and the diseases that would have followed would have been truly horrific and titanic, epidemic scales. So yeah, everything in there, if you're like, well, that never happened, yeah, there it has. Yes?
I listened to your audiobook, and it was absolutely incredible. Did you have a hand in the
Okay, did I have a hand in the audiobooks? Zombie Survival Guide, the audiobook? No. So I didn't even heard it, so if you don't like it, don't blame me.
Okay.
World War Z, on the other hand, it was great. They actually let me cast it. I said, look, I know a little bit about the audio world. I was actually used to do cartoon voiceovers, and I was on Batman Beyond for a little bit. Anybody know Batman Beyond? Well, there was a character, Howard, and Howard was a little different than the other characters. He was special. All the other characters were like brilliant and chiseled and sort of anime, and then there was Howard, who looked like he's out of Tiny Toons. He was fat, and he had glasses, and he had one giant tooth that wrapped around. He was like, hey guys, how's it going? That was me. But I said, look, I have some contacts in that world. Let me just throw my nets out and see if I can get some people. And so I did. And I mean, I cheated, obviously, with Carl Miners, like my uncle. And Rob. But even someone like Alan Alda, who is a wonderful friend, has been a friend of mine all my life. He still had a career, still does. And he's like, look, Max, I love you like a son, but I gotta read this and see if I can. And he did. And he said, wow, I really like this. I'll do it. I was like, oh, thank you. So then I wrote to Mark Hamill. I wrote every letter personally. Mark Hamill I wrote because he'd been in a movie called The Big Red One, where he was a soldier. And I was like, if this soldier had given an interview 10 years later, this is the character I'm looking for. And he did it. I mean, Mark Hamill, this is the Joker. John Turturro and Jürgen Prochnow. It was a wonderful, wonderful cast, and I'm so proud of it. So yeah, as much as the book, I'm proud of that. It's the audiobook. Thank you.
Will there be an unabridged available?
Will there be an unabridged available? If we sell enough. I mean, I don't know. We have to make it marketable to Random House. You know, they have to see that it's worth their while, because usually you just get one dude and you just pay him instead of paying like 20 people. Yes.
Okay, where did you get idea for the Holy Russian Empire? I thought that was interesting.
The idea for the Holy Russian Empire, Russia becoming a theocracy. Well, it's not so far above the imagination that a country that basically has been so decimated and has nothing else to turn to, turns to religion. You know, that happens all the time. And that's basically, that's where I got the idea from. And basically the idea of Russia, and I've been to Russia, and basically they care about one thing, they care about being safe. You know, they've been pummeled by everybody, and they don't care about freedom and democracy. Those are nice little luxuries. They want to know that nobody's going to screw with them. And if you have a strong man that says, I will protect you, they will go with him. I mean, remember, Stalin killed millions of his own people, and then when he died, thousands of his own people were trampled to death as people tried to get to his coffin to say, Comrade Stalin, no! Yeah. Russia, good times, people. How much more time we got?
About 15.
15? Okay. Yes, sir.
I heard that the interviews from the ex-CIA agents in World War Z were actually based on actual interviews with CIA agents. And I want to know, were a lot of them open to revealing information like that, or?
I'll say this, I can't really talk about who I spoke to. I will say I did speak to some people in the government, and there was nothing, the people I spoke to didn't tell me anything that's not public record. Nobody, no. It's not like I sat down in some smoky room, you know, and just like, let me tell you everything. No, I mean, these were casual conversations I have with friends, you know, like there's a government guy who's a government official in my book who's like, look, the government simply can't protect against everything. That's just not how we operate. That's based on an actual conversation of a friend of mine who was in the Pentagon when it was attacked on 9/11. So that's it. Yes, green shirt.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for my completely irrational and horrifying fear of zombies.
My pleasure.
And after reading the guide, I was already a fan of zombies before that, but reading the guide made it seem so much real to me because everything was like based in reality, like especially the hour-by-hour symptoms from infection to reanimation. That blew my mind. But now when I watch any other zombie movies or read a zombie book or anything like that, I'm so much more afraid of it because I've read the guide and I know everything that can go wrong. I know everything that people are supposed to do and not. And how do you feel about that? And for me,
I don't feel that freaking you out.
it rejuvenated the genre for me. And I'm sure it did that for a lot of other people.
Well, I don't know if I rejuvenated the genre. That's hilarious. I guess I've rejuvenated, yes. That's up for you to decide. You know, all I know is as a zombie fan, I wanted it to seem real, and because I wrote it for me, I didn't feel like I had to put in dramatic devices. You know what I mean? Like when you make a movie, you have to put in certain things to make it interesting. You know, like the thing I said before about going up to the summer camp. If you have a bunch of kids that go up to a summer camp, and they hear something in the night, and they go, oh my God, what was that? Well, let's all sit in a circle looking at the windows and turn on all the lights, and then at dawn we'll all leave. That might be the smart thing to do and the realistic thing to do, but you'd have a 10-minute movie. So you have to build in devices where it was like, oh, what is that? Biff, go check that out. Let's go do it in the other room. Oh, and turn on the music so we won't hear somebody open the door. So I tried to make it as real as possible and put in the social commentary as well, because that, I feel, is what George Romero's genius is he has this amazing social commentary. George is the man. Yes, in the back, yeah.
I know a lot of survivalists that they've stockpiled a lot of guns. It could have been even before your book, but someone contributed to your book. I'd like to thank you for their insanity. I'm talking not just guns, but also food and reinforcements. My question for you is, are you ready?
Am I ready? Oh, yeah. Yes.
You mentioned people's fears about other things, and you mentioned a race war. And you just talked about social commentary, and it triggered in my head this crazy coincidence that Romero started, and based on your comments, you reinforced. If we want to survive as a people, we have to come together as a people, because every great zombie movie
I guess we do. I never thought of that.
Camp Foray as Peter, even the main zombie, I can't remember his name, all strong, black, male leads.
Well, Romero's done some stuff in movies that they still won't do. They still will not do it. I mean, in the original Dawn of the Dead, who are the survivors? A black guy and a pregnant white woman, which basically means that that is going to be an interracial family, and that child is going to grow up with a black dad. You never see that in movies. To this day. I mean, as far as me bringing people together, well, yeah. I mean, societies that fragment.
I was just saying it's an interesting parallel that they're all.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, we are a hodgepodge of ethnicities in this country. That's just who we are. And when we come, in fact, that was the rationale behind Pearl Harbor. The Japanese Imperial Command felt that once we were attacked, we would splinter. Different racial groups would go their own way, would turn on each other. What they didn't understand is we're at our best when we're under attack. And I think that that is a message for us. I mean, if we come together, we're invincible. If we splinter, well, we've seen what happened in the last 8 years. In the way back. Oh, the fighter pilot that crashed in Louisiana? Well, that's based on a real woman I know, is a real pilot. Or actually, she's not. She's in the Air Force, but I got a lot of my info from her. And it was based on what it's like to be shot down and to be behind enemy lines. And that's really sort of where it came from. And my God, what would it be like to be behind enemy lines? So I sort of combined that with the Berlin airlift. Once again, history. Yes. There's only one of you.
Have you seen these fan-made lots of
The survival guide, you really kind of was sort of like the vanilla classic zombie. And now the whole zombie mythos has been around for a while. It's gone through several different iterations. You got the slow lumbering zombie, you got the Olympic triathlete zombie that scales up walls and runs faster than you. But you always have with that classic, slow, dumb zombie. And was that like a conscious decision, or was that just the way you did it?
That's an interesting question. What's yours?
Have you seen the fan-made Lawson film based on the Lawson film from the
Oh no, there's a fan-made Lawson film from.
There's a fan-made Lawson film. It made the circuit on YouTube for about 2 weeks before it was pulled from Gore. It's kind of hard to track down, but it's
That's awesome. Well, thank
available
you.
online.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you asked your question. I will check it out. Thank you. Now back to you, sir. Slow lumbering zombies. Why slow lumbering zombies as opposed to fast lumbering zombies, right? Yeah, okay. Well, for me, fast zombies, it's the difference between fear and anxiety. Okay, fast zombies, they're coming at you. Heart's pumping, adrenaline. Oh my God. No time to really be afraid. Slow. That scares me. You guys remember in Day of the Dead? The original one, not the one. Which, by the way, let me say, the new Day of the Dead, oh my God.
Yeah.
I love Mina Suvari. She thought she was in a real movie. She was just and then there was Nick Gannon, who was a brilliant actor. Watch him in the movie Bobby. He's unbelievable. But there you could see Nick Gannon getting the script being like, oh, so I'm the wisecracking black guy who dies. And that's exactly what you're going to get. But in the original Day of the Dead, remember when they land at the helicopter and like, hello! And they're looking around, and the West Indian guy, who's probably not even West Indian, is like, listen to that. Do you hear it? And you hear like, oh, before you even see them, you know that they're coming. Whoa, okay, check please. That's why slow zombies scare me. How much time we got? We got time for one more?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, you, a woman with the hair and the bandage bloody there. Okay, no mistake. What's your question?
Your research
Underwater zombies, why don't they decompose? Well, for one reason, okay. All right, for one reason, underwater zombies, no matter whether you're underwater or on land, any microbes that will eat flesh are living beings, and they are repulsed by the virus. They are killed by the virus, which is one of the reasons they are preserved. Which is why, that's the reason anything rots. Things don't just rot because they rot. They rot because there are microbes that are breaking them down. So if you have something that can repel these microbes, it can literally remain fresh forever. Now, why does the salt water corrode them? Mention that in World War Z, where he says, I don't get it. Nothing in the world corrodes like salt water. Go ask him. Yes.
What's something else that scares you other than zombies?
What's something else that scares me about besides zombies?
Yeah.
Have you heard of administration?
What frickin' doesn't? I mean, come on. I live in LA. We got earthquakes. We got fires. We got terrorism. We got, take your pick. This is also, it's a good question because, Zombie Survival Guide also, on a much deeper psychological level, came out of my childhood. I'm 36. So I grew up at the time of extreme Reagan-era paranoia. The Reagan era not only reignited the threat of being nuked, yay, which, had sort of been kind of petering out since the 70s. It was like, oh, détente, and, no. In the 80s, it was like, this is totally going to happen. And movies like The Day After were coming out, which is a lot freaking scarier than anything I could ever play. In addition to that, you had all these wonderful social calamities, like crack and AIDS. Yay! And it's really fun to just be going through puberty and be told, hey, guess what? All these strange new feelings you're feeling, they could kill you! Our inner cities just totally collapsing, just pulling the rug right out from under them and saying, hey, you're on your own. Oh, wait, we pulled out all the social programs. We've got to fill them up with something. Guns! And then you suddenly had gangs killing each other with assault rifles. So there was this thing of crime, drugs, AIDS, nuclear war. It was just getting out of control. This was my childhood. Yay, hey. And that is where sort of the paranoia, I guess, came from. And then living in Southern California, there was like, oh, there's always going to be an earthquake, and we're always going to fall into the sea. Unless Superman spins around the world. And, ladies and gentlemen, we're out.